I'm Dr. Pete Economo, the East Coast psychologist.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin, the West Coast psychologist.
And this is When East
Meets West.
I always love when we're trying to choose what we're going to talk about from episode to episode, and it seems like you and I often get distracted as we're trying to determine what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we do. Which I bet listeners can guess what what that led to.
An episode on distraction.
Yeah,
It's so easily
which I think is a
distracted
big
in
one.
today's world, wouldn't you think?
I mean, yes, because this is, as I imagine you also experience clinically, people complain to me all the time
Yeah.
about being distracted. And I get the question actually a lot, do I have ADHD? And it's
Yeah.
not a wrong question to ask because lots of people do have it. I treat a lot of ADHD.
Yes. Yeah.
So, it's always worth asking a clinician, though the other thing is just like, these I'm holding on my phone if you're not watching our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Oh man, all
Yeah.
these devices, these screens, they basically get to the sometimes the worst parts of our brain with
Yeah.
distractibility.
It's like we've gotten a PhD, a doctorate degree, and a license to just help people stay focused and get off of their phones.
Yeah, I mean, I need to use it on myself. I mean, I don't know about you.
I same. And I say to clients, it's really, as you know, Nikki, as we're, in CBT, where we practice this radical genuineness, and I will be radically genuine with clients where I'll say like, yeah, sometimes I get lost in the phone too. I get distracted and, but what I try and do is do it mindfully, so I could bring myself back to the moment, which means that I might still kind of be distracted. Mindfulness doesn't mean that we just like automatically correct and perfect. It just means we bring back to the moment, which the moment we might be doing something that we're not proud of or trying to change.
Yeah, well, I think that's something really important. Like, so, because I think what you're saying is something that is often confused in mindfulness, which is that we're not supposed, people think we're not supposed to be distracted. And I'm like, no, distraction is the baseline.
Yeah.
Like that's the baseline. Like getting distracted is what our minds are designed to do. That's where we're going to go. And mindfulness practice is about becoming more aware of that and then having an opportunity for choice to come back.
Yes.
Right. But then I think the other end of like sort of what we're highlighting, with technology is our minds are more distractible these days because of the technology that exists, that it really does. I mean, just for listeners to know, I mean, the way these things are designed, colors, sound, like quick information, it's very, very reinforcing. It's think about like how gambling works, right? It's like, or like slot machines or something, right?
Well, say more about how it's reinforcing, because I think that's the nail on the head. So maybe describe that for listeners.
Yeah, it's just that it gets at a part of our brain that wants to be stimulated. So brains really like stimulation. They like novel information. And so that just, it's like, like dopamine shot, your brain is like, ooh, that feels good. I want more of that. So, so when something gives us that, our brains are more likely to continue engaging in the behavior that provided it. And so things like, you get smartphones, like all the technology we have, like anything with screens, right? iPads, televisions, like endless music available on Spotify or whatever it is. Like there's just so much novel stimuli out there that we as humans get stuck in just continuing to engage with it all the time. And, like, again, like this is just hardwired into everybody. Like I have this, Peter, Pete has this, like, this isn't like a problem only one person on earth struggles with. This is universal, but the problem now is that because of the way things are designed in the modern world, we have to be extra intentional to step away from that stuff. It's like mindfulness is thousands of years old. It's like brains were always distractible. It's like now it's like they're reinforced for being distractible,
Yeah, well, and so it is reinforced, which means it gets stronger to be able to do it. Your brain almost craves it then in a way, right? Because you talked about, the different neurotransmitters and the brains are not really like there's emerging research around how all of these distractions are impacting the brain, which is kind of scary and cool at the same time, like what do you, well, I don't know. I see your face.
I was like, no, I'm laughing because I'm like, Yeah, it's cool from like a scientist lens. Like we're
Right.
like, oh, but scary from a baseline human experience lens, in my opinion.
And I agree with your opinion. It's also the baseline has moved, because it's a
Yeah,
it's a different
yeah.
generation, it's a different culture. And so when you think about how it's affecting, and from a psychological perspective, we are looking at attention, so right now we're talking about
Yes,
distraction.
yes. So
But
important that you're saying that. Yeah.
well, why is that important?
Well, that's what. Keep going with it, Pete.
Yeah, because attention is the concept, psychological concept, where the brain is staying focused. And what we know from like one mindfulness, or just from most of neurology, neuropsychology literature, is that you could only do one thing at a time. So people, I think we even did an episode on multitasking.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
You're always good at remembering the episodes. I'm not.
I'm like, we did that one, but these, we're
Refresh.
complicated species. Yeah, with species, a lot of these things link back. But yeah, no, that's right.
Yeah.
Though I'll add, I think something important to say here though is that distraction doesn't just take away from our ability to pay attention, right? It also gets in the way of something that I think a lot of people don't have a lot of willingness to experience, which is being bored.
Yeah.
It's funny because it's like it was not that long ago, from I don't know, maybe it was like a year ago or something. There was like a great article in the New York Times talking about this and there was some like they were quoting some kind of psychological research in it, but talking about how there's a place for boredom, that in boredom is like we also, it's not pleasant, but there's like space, there's room to daydream, like creativity can be activated. And boredom is not a pleasurable emotion to experience. But I always say anecdotally, people that I work with, I'm like, people go to the ends of the earth to avoid feeling awkward or bored. And I'm like, yeah, those emotions are not fun, but I'm like, they're so mild compared to like shame or like panic. But like the amount of times people don't want to feel bored, And so now we just have these little computers we carry around everywhere that just really, really weaken our brain's ability to just be still. I'll like tell my college students, like I'll be like, it used to be that you go to the post office and you just wait there. You just stand there. You don't do anything.
Maybe talk to the person behind or in front of you.
Maybe. Yeah, but probably, but at the post office, probably not.
Maybe not. Yeah.
You just wait. You're just
wait.
bored.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and you know what? It was fine.
Yeah.
People live. I personally, I kind of long for that experience sometimes because I can feel my brain weakened in that area. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had a meeting the other day. It was outside. And we were trying to then at the end of that meeting schedule the next meeting. And I said, I don't have my phone with me, so I'll have to just text you to follow up. And I did that intentionally because we do. So that's another strategy, is like with intention, you can try and be less distracted, because I think as we talk about attention, the way the brain works, there are primary, secondary, tertiary interests that the brain focuses on. And so distraction takes away from a primary interest. And to your point, that interest may not be pleasurable and often is not. And that's why we're looking for a way to distract. And forever, probably from the beginning of time, people were looking for distractions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Because what was just going through my mind as you were saying that was I was thinking listeners are probably like, well, what's the point? Like, who cares? Like, if I want to be distracted or I want to do something that's stimulating, why don't I do that? And it's like, the point is that nothing works in every context. It's not to say distraction in and of itself is inherently bad. What's not effective or workable is when our brains are trying to prioritize being comfortable at all.
Yes.
And
I love that.
Sometimes being uncomfortable is, a path to being more regulated emotionally, or a path to listening or having space. I mean, like devices, for example, like again, it feels good to just like scroll on your, whatever you're scrolling, Instagram or the news on your phone, waiting in line. But like, then people come and complain to me and they say, like, I have a headache from looking at screens too much, or I feel myself having a difficult time like reading a book, or something. And so we have to be willing to be uncomfortable. So there's a couple like sort of basic suggestions I have for some of that, but I would love to start by listening to what are some of the things that you tell patients, Pete, in terms of ways to work with distraction, try to reduce it. Again, not eliminate it. That's not the point. We can't eliminate distraction, but mitigate it.
Yeah, I love yours about just learning to be bored, learning to be uncomfortable. I think, in the East, there would not, distraction is like really negative, because distraction pulls you out of the present moment. Maybe I think we could probably go back and forth with that because maybe I'm on my phone in the present moment, blah, blah, blah. But the bottom line, like ultimately it's taking you out of the present moment. And obviously in the East, like life, there are things done more simply where you don't have as many distractions. Like I do think, in the West, like we are definitely, more developed. And so we have all these really bright colors, like I remember I had an old aunt and we would drive her around and she'd be like, I should have went into the light industry, because she would be driving around seeing all the bright lights of buildings and,
interesting.
Yeah. Like, what are those things on the side of the road? The poster board
Billboards?
thing, billboards.
Billboards?
This is
Pete's not that old, you guys. Just
I know. Sometimes have word finding difficulties because I'm trying to stay distracted. So yeah, just it is about like, so techniques are, of course, thinking about what you're doing to exercise your brain. And so, meditation really helps to, be able to be okay with, staying focused and attention. We haven't talked about
being uncomfortable and being
uncomfortable
and a willingness to be uncomfortable.
Willingness. We haven't even talked about, you mentioned ADHD a little bit, but also like there's a lot of really great behavioral interventions for ADHD before you get to medication. And
well, that worked for people that don't have ADHD. I mean, that's
right. Exactly.
It's literally just like when we're struggling with attention, it's like breaking tasks down into small pieces, using a Pomodoro timer. If you guys know what that is, it's like 20 to 25 minutes of work and then like 5 to say 15 minutes of a break. I got to throw out there, I mean, This is like my number one like recommendation. I've said it a couple times this week to patients actually in session. Turn off your push notifications.
Amen.
That is the one. I'm always like, there's no need. I'm like, you want to have them on for texts? Like totally. That makes sense. It's like having your phone on, like your phone ringer turned on. I'm like, but no one needs the push notifications for email, social media, whatever app. And people are like, why? I'm like, because even if you don't even have the sound or the vibration on, even lighting up, it's pulling your attention towards your phone. And I'm like, here's the thing, you're still going to check it 9 million times anyway. You're still going to check it. So like, let's just try to reduce it, So
what else you got? You got I love that one. You have other,
that's a big, I mean, that one is, well, that's like, and to throw out a dorky behavioral term it's called stimulus control. So stimulus control for listeners means basically just like changing a stimulus to try to influence a behavior. So, if you wanted to like run in the morning, you might leave your running shoes next to your bed. Like the stimulus, it's not going to make you go running, but it might influence that behavior. And we can do it to reduce it too. Like if you're trying to stop, smoking cigarettes or something, like don't keep them in your pocket, go put them in the console of your car. Doesn't actually stop you from walking to get them. So that's turning off push notifications is just like really simple, like a really simple old school behavioral science tool that, again, it's not magic, you guys, like it requires willingness, but let's just reduce the amount of flashing lights and sounds that your brain is having to encounter all the time.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'm sure listeners are really going to benefit from this episode. We'll do more on it because, distraction is something that is, critical in the East and the West. And so I'll leave you with Sharon Salzberg, which is one of our mindfulness practitioners here in the West. With this quote: as we hone the ability to let go of distraction, to begin again without rancor or judgment, we are deepening forgiveness and compassion for ourselves. And in life, we find we might make a mistake and more easily begin again or stray from our chosen course and begin again.
This has been When East Meets West. I'm Dr. Pete Economo.
And I'm Dr. Nikki Rubin. Be present, be brave.
This has been When East Meets West. All material is based on opinion and educational training of Drs. Pete Economo and Nikki Rubin.
Content is for informational and educational purposes only.